everyone. I'm Emma.
I'm Mel.
We're both staff here at Women's Health and Wellbeing Services, and we just thought that we would jump on and have a quick chat today. So I think we've got another scheduled live happening in an hour. 1:30? Is it 1:30? No, Janet talking about last morning.
That's this morning, usually around 11.
Oh, so they've moved to 1:30 now.
Maybe this afternoon.
Yeah, so there might be another one coming up, or it could just be Mel and I. So honestly, we're total professionals. So it's Men's Health Week this week, and that runs from the 15th to the 21st of June. And obviously we're a women's health service, so why are two women from a women's health service talking about men's health? And I think probably because we focus on mental health and we focus on health for most of our working life, but also because we have significant men in our lives. So generally all of the women who we see coming through here, they all have men in their lives, whether that is a partner, whether it's a son, whether it's a brother, whether it's a dad, whether it's just friends who are men. And what we find is that women's health is significantly impacted by the support that we give to those people who are in our lives. Women often have that supporting role, and we carry the people who are around us or hold the people who are around us. And so being aware of Men's Health Week is kind of important.
Very.
Yeah.
Because I think often too there's a lot of stuff for women, which is great and important, and for children and for families and stuff like that. And men still perhaps tend to be a little in the background because sometimes they don't like to talk as much as us women, kind of thing. So
sometimes they talk a lot. Just going to put that out there. Some men talk a lot.
A lot of men.
I hang out with a lot of.
For a reason.
Yeah. So in my life,
in the right space.
Definitely. In my life outside of working at the Women's Health Service, I do some work with an organisation that works with a lot of men. And those men can talk a lot. They make me look incredibly quiet.
Football clubs and stuff like that it's deafening.
Yeah.
The conversations that go
on. But that's a really interesting concept before we get started is we have this idea that women talk a lot and that women are really open about their mental health and anxiety and stress, and that men don't talk much. So men are silent and they just deal with their problems themselves and they don't talk about them. And I'm actually wondering where those concepts have come from and whether or not they're still relevant today.
Yeah. I guess they're kind of old-fashioned, traditional notions of
stoic men,
absolutely,
and jabbering housewives standing on the step.
And there might still be some of them.
Yeah,
but I definitely think the landscape has changed around that in society, and a lot more men are willing to talk and share. Certainly amongst blokes, I was having this conversation last night with my partner, and he was saying, no, he certainly the generation now from when 20 years ago when he was in his 20s kind of thing, there's a lot more openness about it and willingness to talk about mental health and when you're not feeling good. But certainly within that, I think that community setting or whatever it is, whether that's work, but more I guess hobbies and leisure stuff where you're choosing to hang out with particular blokes kind of thing rather than you have to because of work kind of thing. So I do think that shift, definitely shifting. Yeah,
definitely. And I actually think, and I promise I won't soapbox about this now, but well, I'll try not to. How's that? I can't promise I won't, but I promise I'll try not to. But I think we're moving to a time where we have we're encouraging men to be more open about talking about their feelings and their emotions, but we're actually flipping it and we're encouraging women to know that they can do everything and that they are strong, and to show emotion is actually weakness. So I almost feel like we're flipping everything on its head, and we're having men who are becoming much more emotionally aware and women who are possibly in a community and in a landscape where we're being encouraged to be much less open about our emotions. Yeah. Because, if you're emotional, well, then you're that emotional woman. Yeah. Rather than the fact that you're a person who's experiencing emotions regardless of gender.
Sure, because you're human.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the concept of the mental load, and I guess how, there's been so much shifting kind of roles and opportunities for men and women for decades now, and we're still trying to find that balance, but that notion of some women these days, typically carry.
Sweeping generalisations.
Yes,
We're
that's
very
what
much
they
aware that we talk about not generalising anything. We are generalising everything.
Thank you for training us. Yes, carry so much and have this listed in their head, and there's this sort of competition of busyness. And I heard this yesterday. I was in a waiting room just yesterday. Okay, maybe that was Wednesday actually, but this week.
It's close.
And the receptionist was talking to a patient who walked in and said, how have you been? How have you been going? And she said, busy. That was how she described it. I mean, you're not describing how you are. That's just like, that's what I've been doing. And it's just this lump of busyness. And this is kind of like this.
When did busy become an emotion?
It's a thing, exactly. I mean, what does that say? What is that perhaps blocking in a way? And you can't say, I'm busy, but I'm freaking out. I cannot handle this. I don't want to be this busy. I've got to keep it all together for
Stop the world. I want to get off.
Absolutely. Perhaps there is more of a shutdown happening, except if you catch up with the girls and maybe have a few wines, and only then,
once you relax a little bit and
let your guard down. But like, it's perhaps like men are getting more vulnerable with each other, which is so important. But what's happening with women? Are we not doing that? Or I don't. Yeah,
I know. I think there's this expectation of women that to be and do everything. So women have fought for so long for the right to be able to have a career and work full time and to be respected within different professional industries. And so now we have to work full time and we have to parent full time. So you need to work as though you're not a parent. You need to parent as though you don't work. You need to volunteer at the kids' school. You need to be, you need to be on the PNC. You need to be involved in the community. You need to be helping out at the canteen at the local football club. You need to be making sure you're there to support your partner. You need to be making sure that you're there to support your parents. You need to be making sure you're there to support your girlfriends. You've got to be running kids to and from. You've got to be everything for everyone. And I remember when I hadn't been working very long, and a particularly lovely manager said to me, stop trying to be Superwoman, because you're setting unrealistic expectations for yourself and other women. Because if you only present this persona of being a Superwoman, other people try and live up to that and fail. And so I think as women, we're doing this. We share this glossy idea around look at all this that I'm managing to achieve, but I'm totally burnt out.
And you lose yourself in that.
That's it, and just become busy. How am I? I'm busy.
Yeah.
My name is Busy. That's all you
actually
become.
A name. I think that's someone's name in the world.
It's probably Busy.
Yeah.
So where how have we done that, and how do we kind of undo that? And I'm aware that we're here to talk about men.
Yeah.
Let's just get off on a tangent.
Women.
That's what we do.
I guess women still are the multitaskers, and I do genuinely believe that we are built a little bit differently in that way, and kind of in an evolutionary sense, we kind of need to be able to juggle a few things while the men go off and do that. I'm talking very gendered stereotypes here. But that's kind of more extreme than ever now. And look, I'm super grateful that we have all these opportunities, but perhaps we still have a way to go, and we're sliding a bit back that way whilst the men are over here doing something different and better. But what does this all mean, I suppose?
Yeah. And it's interesting, that point as well. I was having a conversation, I was a guest on a podcast recently, and speaking about the mental health benefits of playing games, and how different games can actually increase people's ability for multitasking. And when you're working with a predominantly male male group, being able to sell that to your partner, that it's really great that I'm playing this game because it's increasing my ability to multitask, is a good selling point. But for women, what can we do so that we can actually increase our ability to monofocus?
Yeah.
Because I think again, generalizations and stereotypes, but as women as a rule, we're very good at multitasking, and we're very poor at actually being able to focus on just one point. And a great example of this is the fact that we've gone off on a total tangent, and not once have we talked about men's health.
Demonstrating. This is live demonstration.
That's it, exactly.
That's true though, and I think there's research around multitasking, and that it's what actually happens in the brain when it switches between tasks. You're losing time and efficiency in a way, because it's kind of got to gear up into, oh wait, now I'm doing this, and then you're like, oh wait, now I'm doing that. And look, we have to multitask. It's a fact of life. But do we need to be doing so much.
So much.
And there's so much. Ideally, I suppose, if you can complete one task before moving on to the other, which I think is quite more of a masculine thing to do. This very single focus. I need to get through that, but we kind of need to have a bit of.
There's a
both.
Joke. It's not really very funny because it's a bit too close to the bone. That talks about the woman who's going to do some laundry, and she's going to put a load of laundry in, but when she gets there, she notices that there's a cup that should be in the kitchen. So she goes to take that to the kitchen, and when she goes there, the pantry door's open, and so she can see in the pantry that actually the pantry's a bit messy. So she starts emptying out the pantry to tidy the pantry up, and then finds one of the Tupperware lids in there. So then she opens the Tupperware drawer, and then the Tupperware's everywhere. So she's pulled everything out, and that's how I ended up sitting on the kitchen floor drinking wine straight from the bottle. So everything's everywhere. The laundry's not done. Your whole pantry's on the floor. Your Tupperware containers are everywhere. And you think, just burn it.
I can't deal with it. But it's like I can't shut off my mind. If I see stuff on the way to the laundry, it literally happens like that. I can't just leave it. And I'm thinking it's more efficient for me to do that and that and that. And then, sometimes I've watched my son over the years, bless him. Hopefully he's not watching. He's going to be watching this. He won't be watching this. But put the dishes away from the dish drainer or the dishwasher when it was working. It's not working anymore. But he would literally do one plate at a time. And I'm like, dude, just stack them up. He's like, what? I'm like, okay, it's going to take you twice as long. But, I mean, he's young, and so he's, I guess, learning how to do things. But it really struck me that I do things very differently to him.
Which, just as yet again another tangent, so this is why I don't do many lives, because I do tend to, I call it the Billy Connolly's version of storytelling. Like, we get there in the end, but there's a lot of loops and
bear with us.
Turns, but one of the things I find with women that I hear so often is, I have to do it because he doesn't do it the way that I do it. Oh my goodness, let that go. He might not do it the way that I do it, but he's doing it, not me.
Yeah.
So, you know what, if my son is the same. His job is to empty the dishwasher, and it kills me. So I just leave the kitchen, because at the end of it, the dishes are away, and it hasn't been done my way. But I'm not doing it.
That used to come up when I used to do. I'm technically still a therapist, but certainly when I was doing more hands-on therapy, boy, did I see that a lot with women clients, and the real struggle, particularly the mums, struggle with letting go of doing things their way, because often we accidentally kind of set things up for our own demise in that way, because we're like, you have to do it this way, it has to be in this time, and you have to learn. You just have to do it. There's no way around it, to let stuff go. If they're going to do it, and I've just got to let them do it, otherwise you'll be up to here and then drinking wine on the kitchen floor in the middle of the day.
Really not socially acceptable. But also, we may not know the right way either. So I remember I'd done a course on, it was a course for work about how to be better at my job. And it was
She's great at her job.
Oh, there's definitely room for improvement. But anyway, so I'd done this particular course, and my son was having an issue with his little sister, and I went in and I know exactly how to solve it. And I was going in and I just went, you know what, just stop for a minute and give him the space for him to be able to solve it. So I said to him, I want you to come up with 6 different options. So here's what the problem is. You tell me where you want to get to. So he then articulated what he wanted the goal to be.
Yeah.
I was like, great. It was the same goal that I had. Awesome. But he'd articulated that. And I said, well, give me 6 different options that we can do for how we can go from where we are now to where you want to be. You give me those 6 options. And I knew exactly how to get to that end place. And I knew how to do it, and I knew how to do it quickly. And he gave me 6 options, and his options were better. And
oh, bless.
That's it. But I was so stuck in my way that I know how to solve it. I can solve it quickly. We can do this. Let's just get it done. And I took that step back and gave him the space to be able to do that. And he did it better. And that was probably one, I learn from my kids all the time, but that's one of the things that I learned, that we all think in a certain way. And whether you think 1 + 3 = 4, or whether you think 5, take away 1 + 3, take away, that gets you to 4. It doesn't matter how you think. Like, people think differently, and or people do roles differently.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter when you get the same end result, particularly if you're not the one that's having to mop the floor.
Yeah.
So.
But that got me thinking about how then women as partners, mothers, daughters, nieces, all this kind of stuff can support men and kind of get out of the way sometimes in letting them do it their way, or say, trust them without our need to kind of control.
That's
We're
it.
just going to put out there, sometimes we're a little controlling. We want things done a certain way, or we might be anxious about it, or there's a time,
A lot of that comes from love.
yeah.
I love you, and I can see that you're struggling.
Absolutely.
I need to fix it for you because that's my job. I'm the nurturer, I'm the fixer, and to step back, that's really confronting, difficult.
And I suppose then to have conversation afterwards or at some point about that and about trying to do something different, because I think over time, no matter who it is, like if somebody was doing that to me, I'm going to say doing it, but you'd sort of would just give up. You'd like, well, I'm not going to bother trying to fix this or having a conversation with you because you're so fixed on how you want to do it, and then you start to see problems show up in that relationship or that dynamic, whether it's parent-child or your partner, rather than you do it your way, they do it their way, and you have to accept that, because it's not nice to be on the receiving end of that. And I imagine for a lot of men, they're like, this is so frustrating,
And then you're like, well, he just never does anything. No, but when he tried, you kept telling him it was wrong.
Yes.
If somebody kept telling you that you can't do something wrong, would you keep going? Or would you just go, I'm out?
Absolutely.
Because I cannot stack the dishwasher right. Apparently I can't.
How many ways are there to do it?
I don't know, but apparently I don't do it right, and that's 100% fine.
No problem.
He is welcome to do the dishwasher. But then if he goes, oh, you never stack the dishwasher, well, that's because I don't do it right.
Yeah.
So you tell me I don't do it right. You tell me that you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna. Why would I try?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and to be honest, I'm 100% okay with not doing it right. And if there's any other jobs around the house that I don't do right either, he's welcome to those too.
I certainly have to stop myself from doing all the dishes all the time and haul my son in to do it. Otherwise, it's so easy for us to just want to get stuff done
and quickly.
Because
I want it done now.
We've got this list going on in our head, or even to just stop doing stuff, just to be with them a bit more. This came up in a group I was running recently, how challenging it is sometimes to just be with our children. It's a parenting group that I'm running, that we run here, Circle Security. It's a great program.
It's absolutely fantastic. Even if you don't have children, it's great for your attachment and interaction with your partner, with your animals. I see Circle Security with my dogs all the time.
Absolutely.
So it is, everybody should do Circle Security. It should be mandatory for living, or anybody who has any kind of interaction with any living being should have to do it.
If you're human, you should
do it. There's that little marketing plug. We interrupt this less than linear discussion to give you this.
Imagine if guys are watching this, they'd be like, get to the point!
Seriously, woman!
That's the assumption I'm making, but yeah.
And there could be a fair few women who are like, oh my God, I tuned into find about men's health and we've just rabbited on. Oh dear.
Yeah, I was just reading about the being,
the
being with and and just how we get in our own way, really, to be with ourselves, be with our child, be with our partner, if we're constantly trying to get through a list or constantly trying to tell the other person how to do it. We're actually doing ourselves, I think, a big disservice in that regard. But maybe we should focus more on
men's health.
Men's
Possibly.
Mental
Yeah.
health?
Yeah, maybe. I've written some notes. And, okay, so now I actually can't tell from that screen over there whether we do have anybody who's actually watching live with us. But if you do, feel free to jump in with any questions that you might have around, and I've got my phone with me so I can actually just jump on following along with it on silent. Well, I will follow along with it on silent. So if we do have any questions that come up, we can always ask those as well. Otherwise, it'll just be us jumping between the two.
So you've been warned.
That's
you want
it.
us to quieten down, you need to
jump in, ask some questions. And if you are following along after and you've got questions or anything, then feel free to add those questions to it. just tag Women's Health and Wellbeing Services in the comment that you put, so that we'll be able to see it, and then we'll either be able to respond in writing, or we'll be able to respond.
I think we'd love to hear from men, or if not from men, from women, about what's happening in their world in relation to the men in their lives, in relation to their physical and mental health, what they've noticed or not, or how they've supported them, or what they struggle with, or anything to do with that. We would love to hear that. We do have, speaking of the Circle Security Group, we have Evan, who runs the Circle Security Group twice a year. It's been a bit different this year because of, I don't know, a big pandemic that came along. Anyway, just for men, just for typically for fathers, but like Emma said, anyone can come along, and that's super well received. And we were just talking about this before, how, there's this kind of assumption, men don't want to come to counselling, or men don't want to talk about their problems. But whenever we run that group, it's always really well attended, and it stays well attended. There's rarely any dropouts. Like, they commit. This is on a Thursday evening, so we try to make it more accessible. And I think the sharing, I've never sat in that room because I'm not a guy kind of thing, but the sharing and the richness and the depth that goes on in there, particularly talking about parenting, it's a really what space to be in. Brings up a lot of your own stuff, but to hear other dads and other blokes going through that, what does that say? That men really want to talk. They can talk. Here we are going, men just don't, but they do. And there's a lot more of that happening, I think, in this day and age.
I agree, and I've never been in the group for dads either, because I'm not a dad. Well, it's men's, and I'm not a man. But so while we're not there to actually experience that sharing, and we can't, so we do have soundproof rooms here for our therapeutic rooms, but you can still hear the rumble of the conversation. So it's not just Evan standing in front of these men and presenting. There is so much sharing and interaction, and it's deep stuff and personal that people share. It's really, and I know you experience that when you're running it with mums and when you're running it with couples as well, but it's absolutely fantastic to see people being that vulnerable. Yeah. Because being vulnerable is probably one of the biggest strengths that I think that we can have, and we really underestimate the strength that it takes to be vulnerable. So.
Yeah, and I think that relates back to earlier. I'm trying to track where we've been, but
especially because we sort of had a bit of a conversation before we came in. Not that we followed any of that. It was like, what did we talk about before, and where did we start now?
About, I think women struggle to be vulnerable. Yeah. With this busyness and sort of competitiveness, and I was thinking that before. That notion, women don't dress for men, they dress for other women just to go, I just want to look better than, or whatever that is, whether that's conscious or not.
It's not that, I don't know that they want to look better than, but they need to make sure that they're not. Yeah. There's
something kind of, but
that. You'll be judged by women, but you won't be judged by men.
Oh, they're just like, it's just a woman, or a smart woman, kind of thing. But I think when that's going on, that creates barriers rather than vulnerability. And I sort of travel in a couple of circles that are, Emma might do too, some sort of vague, more hippie-ish kind of women's circles and stuff like that. And they are so different. They really create that space for women to, and I'm sure there's some men's groups around like that, but it's so different. There's no competition. There's no crap kind of thing. You can just, and we do try to create that here. Certainly with our groups, particularly with mothers groups and stuff like that, because that can really show up there. I don't want to say that I'm struggling kind of thing, and that's what we're talking about today, men or women struggling, and what do you do?
Yeah, I remember when my son was very little, and when he was born, he was not an easy child at all, and I was incredibly sleep deprived. And I remember going to a mum's group, and I got out of the car, and she was probably 20 months old, and I got a 3-month-old, and and I was just so out of it, and I realised that my shirt was on inside out. So just in the middle of the street, I took my shirt off and without even thinking, and it turns out there was a man doing some work on a roof on the same road, and I was breastfeeding, so I was very well endowed. He very nearly fell off the roof. But just that kind of thing of, I was really struggling, and I went into that mum's group, and I just heard how amazing everyone's child was. And I sat there, and because I was so tired, I just went, so I'm the only one with devil spawn then. Just my filter had just gone. Yeah. And then, like, from just that moment of going, so I'm the only one with devil spawn, everyone was like, oh, she didn't sleep last night. And he didn't. Like, well, then why?
Right.
Why can we not be real? And why can we not say to people, this is damn hard?
Yeah.
So, and with that, let's link that over to if we have men who are struggling, what are some of the signs and some of the things that we can be looking for in our men to give us an idea that they're actually possibly not struggling and they're, I think part of it is the men's role is still seen by a lot of men that they have to be the strong one in the relationship. They have to be the stoic one. They're the ones who they get their identity from their work and their employment, and so their role isn't to be vulnerable. So what are some of the things that we can maybe look for to give us an idea that the men in our lives are perhaps not doing as well as they could be?
Yeah, good question. And there's an ad that springs to mind I've seen on TV, not for a while, but about, I don't know if it's a Lifeline ad or something, and there's this guy sitting in the backyard and we would assume his wife looking at him through the window going, there's just something not right with him. And there's another ad too with a guy, they're having a barbecue and he's just kind of checked out, he's just kind of spacing out, he's flipping the burgers kind of thing, and somebody's noticing that. So there's this kind of typical signs that I think we tend to think when somebody is struggling or depressed or maybe anxious, that they look down or they look withdrawn, they're not engaging in the activities they love to do, or there's no sort of connection. You know, things like distractions and unhealthy coping strategies, an increase in that kind of stuff. But also what Emma and I were talking about before was when somebody's really down and contemplating self-harm, in whatever kind of spectrum that is. And if that gets to the pointy end of not wanting to live anymore, sometimes that can look really different. In fact, there might be a bit of an increase in mood, and sometimes you'll see behaviours like starting to give away valued objects, sort of making plans to do that kind of thing, and finalising, well, I'm going to go to this and do this, and then that's kind of it. And this person's going to, it's like kind of doing a living will, actually doing it. And what that means sometimes, not all the time, but what you might be witnessing then is somebody has made a decision. They've actually made a really firm decision. On this day, I'm going to end my life. So I'm doing these preparations beforehand. And sometimes that's really missed because you can think, oh, they've perked up.
So they've been so down, they've been so flat, they've lost their job and they've been, really struggling for so long. They've turned a corner. Yeah. How great is that to see that he's so much happier now and so much lighter. And I think when you see that, for me, that's kind of always the thing, he's so much lighter now. Why?
Yeah.
Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Has a decision been made and now he feels like that decision's been taken off his shoulders, and so he actually does feel lighter?
Sure.
Or is he actually in a better place now? So
and you need to ask.
Yeah.
This is a thing that I think is still a bit problematic for many people, when it's totally understandable, because it's very tough to say to someone, are you thinking of ending your life? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? I mean, that's a hardcore statement to ask someone. But most of the time, the relief that comes with somebody naming it and saying, you know what, I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
Or even saying, I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
And I think when blokes do that to each other, hey mate, what's kind of going on?
Yeah.
There's a permission. Whether they take that offer to talk or not is a different thing, but you've got to name it. And so actually, I think that's a very blokey thing to do.
That's it.
Let's just cut through the crap. I'm trying so hard not to swear. I'm doing really well.
I know, I'm trying to
Rather than a kind of a dance around, which I think women tend to do more of that dancing around. Oh, okay, so there's a little bit here and there. But actually, we don't, I think we can easily just cover it. We're very good fakers, I think, women, because we've got to keep going.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think it feels quite confronting to actually, even, so for example, we've got a friend who's experiencing something, it's quite confronting to go, hey, do you think he's going okay?
Yeah.
Like just having that conversation, but to actually say to him, I'm worried about you. Are you, I'm a bit concerned that you might be going to end your life, or, are you suicidal? And I think also part of that is a lot of people are afraid of that word suicide.
Yeah. And they think that means that someone's just going to go and do it.
And one of the big fears, exactly, is that somebody's going to go do it, but one of the big fears is, what happens if he hasn't thought about suicide and I put the idea in his head?
Yeah. And look, I think there's a lot of evidence these days that typically doesn't happen. And we have these kind of notions around a lot of taboo topics, you know, talking about sex or violence or suicide, these kinds of things with loved ones or people that we cherish, you know, children and stuff like that. Oh, if I open, or drugs, you know, if I open that conversation, they're going to want to go out and do it. And actually that usually doesn't happen. It's the opposite. The opposite that happens, the silence and the avoiding and let's not go there, that actually creates more problems than just opening up that conversation, which takes a lot of guts. It really does. And of course, if you're going to ask that, you need, you know, have a bit of
what you're going to do.
A bit of a strategy around that, because
Yeah.
you can't just kind of drop that bomb and then they say, yes, actually I am. And you're like, oh, crikey, what do we do?
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Have a good day.
Probably can't do that.
No, and that's kind of one of the things that's around the Are You OK Day, that it becomes this almost flippant to go, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I understand the idea around opening up that conversation. It's great opening up the conversation and starting to get more awareness. But what do you do if somebody actually goes, no, I'm not okay?
Yeah.
And where do you, if you've got no experience in the area of mental health, how do you actually then respond to that?
Good question. I was recently again talking to my partner, picking his brains about this, and said, oh, do you know of any of your mates that will go to the GP if they're struggling, so certainly psychologically or with their mood? And he said, no. So you look, because that's certainly a first point of call in a way. Otherwise it might be reaching for those more kind of online or phone kind of resources, and really being able to talk. You know, that person needs to talk, perhaps beyond the scope of what you can provide as a friend, or it might be quite overwhelming and you need some more professional support. And look, if they're very, very, I guess, ill and they're currently suicidal, you would need to go to a hospital. You would need to take that person to emergency. That's a medical emergency. It's a psychological emergency.
I want to come back to the idea of going to the GP in a minute, but before we do, I think one of the questions that's probably important to ask, if you ask somebody if they're feeling suicidal and they say yes, there's a big, as Mel said before, there's a big spectrum around what that means. So there's, at the one end, you've got the idea that, you know, if I didn't wake up tomorrow, everything would feel a whole heap easier. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got, at the end of this particular event, I'm going home, I've got the tablets, well, men are less likely to use tablets, but, you know, I've got whatever means it is available to me at this particular day, this particular time, this particular location, this is what I'm going to do. So if you've got sort of the one end of the spectrum where somebody's going, you know, it would just be easier if I wasn't here, then I think you've got some scope to be able to then talk about some of the other places that they can reach out for some help or what sort of support they need. If you've got somebody who, you know, I think that that you might need some help, are you thinking of ending your life? Well, I've actually just taken 4 packets of this particular, you need to call an ambulance. Yeah. You know, and so that's sort of looking at the difference.
That's the extreme end.
That's the extreme end. You know, if you've got somebody who's already on their way to doing that, then we need to call an ambulance, call 000, get some assistance, take them to an emergency department or access some, because that is a medical emergency. And ideally we want to have somebody presenting to an emergency department before an attempt rather than after. But yeah, if you have somebody who's at the other end, I always think it's interesting. People have this idea around going to a GP means they're going to put me on medication. And medication can be useful for certain people in certain circumstances, and you know, for some people it's a first point of call. For other people, it's a last resort. But one of the things that you can do if you go to a GP to start out, have some blood tests done. Yeah, just check.
Such a good point.
Are there any, you know, is there any mineral or vitamin deficiency that actually could be impacting mood? Yeah. And rule those out, because it may be as simple as vitamin D deficiency.
Yes, yeah, big one.
And particularly if you've got people who work night shift, something like that. So being able to go in and check, but also with your GP, they can then make referrals through to different counsellors as well.
Yeah, and there's certainly men's-specific services and phone lines. There's a men's advisory service. I think that's still men's advisory network.
Yeah, man.
Beyond Blue, I think, has some men-specific things. If that's what you want, some men like that, some women like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes you will need to perhaps go and have some actual counselling. Sometimes it's just a couple of chats, a good chat, and working out a bit of a plan. Because from the outside, sometimes someone's having a conversation with that person, and they can actually see some solutions that person can't. And that's the beauty of sharing and the beauty of just getting it out, kind of thing. Or just having someone validate the crap situation that you're in. If you've lost your job or if you've gone through a divorce, your children are now with their mother, that kind of thing, that can be really, really difficult for a lot of men, or there's child custody arrangements, that kind of thing. But you need someone to talk through that kind of stuff. Don't keep it all inside. That's toxic, really.
Definitely. And I think so obviously we run a mental health service. We have counselling here. We believe in counselling.
We do.
One of the things that we hear way too often is, I've tried counselling before, it doesn't work. Now for me, I kind of think I'm a shoe person. So I kind of feel that that's a bit like saying, well, I tried wearing shoes once and I got blisters, so that doesn't work for me.
Yes.
Perhaps it wasn't the right fit. If you've got size 9 feet and you tried to squeeze your feet into a pair of size 7 stilettos, it's not going to fit. So maybe the therapist that you met with last time wasn't a good fit. Maybe, meeting with a different therapist who works with different kind of methods and skills, maybe that's a better fit. Maybe working with somebody, so we have talk therapy versus play therapy versus art therapy versus neurofeedback. So there's lots of different options. It's about going, I need to find the right fit. So just because something hasn't worked once doesn't mean that that's actually, oh, well, I've tried it, so therefore I'm not doing it again. Now, if we worked on that, none of us would have ever managed to get food into our mouth or learn how to walk. So you've got to keep trying till you find what works.
You need to shop around. That's a very, very good point. Yeah.
And so we talk about if we have men or women who really need to talk to somebody, sometimes getting an appointment with a counsellor can take a little while. And so you can call Lifeline 13 11 14 or text them between Eastern Standard Time 6 and midnight. So if you don't want to talk but you can have text, that's 0477 13 11 14. But I will say that those are run by counsellors, but if you find that the person who you're speaking to on the phone for those phone lines isn't a good fit, hang up, wait 5 minutes, call again. Chances are you'll get a different therapist.
Yep.
So it's about reaching out and being able to try and find different fits, different ways. Yeah.
I agree. We were talking before too about the importance of community and connection, and how dangerous isolation can be, and
there's 2 different kinds of isolation as well.
Yeah.
So there's isolation where you are actually physically isolated, and isolated where you're surrounded by people but still feel alone.
That's a horrible feeling, isn't it? It's kind of a unique feeling of loneliness. In that. But how having stuff to do and keeping yourself active and involved in stuff you enjoy, that's where that community comes in. I'm not necessarily talking about work. I think sometimes there's a tendency for people, I'm just going to say people because this might happen for women too, but to have your main kind of social connections of work colleagues, but you probably don't see them outside of work. And you need to have something outside of work, I think, to have a bit of a balance. I'm not saying you've got to have 50 great friends, it's just not possible and probably weird kind of thing. But you need to have some community or connections, or there's something of quality for you. Otherwise,
that's where the act belong commit stuff comes in.
Absolutely, they say that for a reason. We're social beings, and when we lose that, if you've moved states or cities, or suddenly you're doing FIFO work, you don't really know anyone, and these kinds of things, then that sense of disconnection and isolation can be really catastrophic as well.
And there's studies that show that social connection and social interaction is really good for your physical and mental health. So having face-to-face contact with people, shaking hands, high fives, is enough for serotonin, dopamine and oxytocin release, which is enough to reduce stress levels. And when we think about our stress levels being, it's pretty much the number one killer. Yeah. So stress, the morbidity and mortality that comes from those high stress levels, and the fact that social connection and social interaction by itself is enough to lower those, having that, getting text messages through, sorry.
Multitasking.
That's it, multitasking. having that connection is enough to lower our stress levels and actually improve our overall health. And that's men and women.
Yeah.
But yeah, having that community and that sense of belonging and a shared connection. So speaking of, the sort of isolation, we see a lot in Defence Force and first responders, police, paramedics. They have this, and they talk about sort of PTSD being, rather than one major incident, it's like the leaking tap.
Yeah.
So you've got a bucket and the tap's dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping. Well, it's not a major incident that makes that bucket overflow. It's one drip that makes that bucket overflow, and then it just keeps overflowing because the tap doesn't stop. And so when you're able to find a community with people who have those shared experiences as well, you don't have to talk about those shared experiences, but you know that the people who are in that room with you have also been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And it's nice knowing that you're not the only person who's in the room who's had that experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, that shared experiences and shared connection can be really valuable and really really helpful for mental health as well.
Yeah, worth its weight in gold. I think like what we were saying before with mothers groups and stuff like that, when you or any kind of, we find this every time when we run a group, and there can be a lot of anxiety in coming to a group, totally, of course it is, because there's a bunch of strangers, oh my God, what are we going to be talking about here? Overwhelmingly, and there's stacks of research about this as well, once you get into a group and you find that other people are struggling with the same things you're struggling with, that in itself is highly therapeutic, and you're like, I'm not alone in this. I mean, it's great now that we have the internet, I suppose, and you can kind of search stuff and find communities. So if you can't get to something physically, there's that as well. But that is so important to know, because what often happens when you're when you're really depressed or very anxious or struggling in some way with your mental health, your focus becomes really narrow, and you think no one else is going through this, no one else gets it, but I can tell you,
somebody else is. You are not alone.
You're not alone, and you need to remember that. I'm not saying you're going to search out other people who are going through exactly the same thing you are. There won't be. Everyone's unique.
Everyone's unique.
Yeah, but that's so important.
I'm not trying to contradict myself here. It's hard to find a balance as well, because you don't want that one experience or the issue that you're going with to be your overall defining feature either.
Of course.
So, you need to sort of find the balance of being able to connect with people who have got shared experiences. You don't need to, but it can be helpful to connect with people with shared experiences, but be able to have experiences outside of that as well. So, we spoke earlier about, for men, often how they define themselves is based on their career and their their sort of sports or whatever their hobbies are.
Sure.
You don't want the one thing that defines you to be the PTSD or the a mental health diagnosis. So it's about that being one small part of what makes you you, rather than it being, well, there's Barry over there and he's bipolar. No, Barry may experience bipolar, but actually Barry is a 42-year-old man with a wife, a sister, a mum, a Labrador. He enjoys short strolls on the beach. It's a very small part of a huge person. Yeah,
and I think too, when you go through a period of your life, or some people of course experience sort of chronic mental health conditions, but often though we just have sort of episodes. We might have episodes, or it might be very situational. I lost my job, or somebody who's died that I love. Many different situations.
And those things don't need labels.
No, the labels. I was thinking some people are really hesitant too. I think to go to GP or see a psychologist or whatever, or a therapist, because they're like, they're going to label me with something. Some people find that really helpful. Some people don't. That's very personal, and you need to. I guess you'll kind of manage your way through that. But I guess the point is too, that it's a part of you, and if you're struggling right now, this is a time in your life that can have a start and an end, and then you can kind of look back, I've kind of gone through that now, but it's not who I am. Kind of things. You have to be very careful, I think, when you slide down that rabbit hole, not to kind of, with that focus, kind of really getting choose singular,
Yeah.
and then kind of worry about all these other things. I'm going to get labelled or judged or whatever else we tend to think when we're in that state.
And an interesting, well, I think it's interesting, that's why I do it, but an interesting activity that I do with new mums who are struggling with a sense of identity is actually get them, so, you know, I'm Emma, I am this particular profession, and I've had to give that up because now I've had a new baby and I don't know who I am anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask them to sit down and go, okay, what I want you to do is actually, so yes, you're whatever that profession is.
Mm.
What else are you? So what are your hobbies? What is your family relationships? I want you to put all of that on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely all of it. Now take away the one, which is that label of having that particular career. How has that impacted that whole sort of overall, what have you got in as the elements of your life when you just take that one away, compared to I'm only defining myself as that career. So when you take away that one label, if you're only a professional podcast or Facebook Liver, so you know, that's all you do, and you take that one label away, it's very easy to feel like your whole identity's been lost.
Yeah.
But if you know, my name's Emma, I'm a professional Facebook Liver, I enjoy swinging from balconies and, you know, whatever, you know, all of a sudden, well, that's just one part, and that's okay. It's not leaving such a huge void anymore.
Yeah, so, sort of keeping that in perspective.
Because I'm a visual learner, I like to have that on paper, because then you can actually say, well, that's just that one small thing that's gone, rather than my whole identity.
Because if you look at your life over the space of 24 hours or a week, it's filled with many different activities, you know, where you direct your time. Sure, a chunk of it might be at work, but a chunk of it's also sleeping, hopefully.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's
and eating, for you. And hanging out with your kids, or going to play footy, whatever you do, or gaming, or, you know, many, many different things. I don't know, go to the gym, you know, that's exactly it. You need that for starters, and you need to remember that and not defined or just one thing, because that can be very, tricky when that changes. If that is out of your control as well, that's not good.
And if you're Barry, who's a truck driver, and you lose your job as being a truck driver, we know that men really do put a lot of their identity on their career. So how does that impact you when you're not working anymore? Your role is as a truck driver, but also as a provider for your family, and that's been taken away as well. So you
need to be balanced. That reminds me of retirement. A lot of people really struggle in retirement if they haven't, you know, developed other areas of their life as well. This is exactly what's happening to my dad, who's retired. I just spoke to him last night. He's getting really bored, you know. He's going to pick up some work again from his old workplace. He wants to do that, and he can do that in his own time, but I think he was a bit unprepared. I'm not sure what he thought would happen. I don't know what he thought for me, you know, when that happens.
But often with women, what I find is that they go, well, now I've got more time to do all of these other little hobbies that I've got, and I don't know how I ever found enough time to work.
Absolutely. So that happens now with my partner. I'm like, I wish I could work less, so I could just do all this stuff. Like, all my little projects. And he's like, what? Like, because he doesn't do, you know, we're different kind of thing. So that.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking too while Emma was talking, while you were talking about, we're talking about new mothers, but also for new fathers. You know, there can be postnatal depression and anxiety and difficulty adjusting to that role and identity change. Pressure. I think a lot of men go, holy crap, now I've got to up the ante, I've got to make sure I'm working, I've got to get a bigger car and a bigger this and a bigger that. And that sometimes can lead down pretty dark paths as well, or also sometimes there's a feeling in new dads, a loss of their partner, because their partner's now very dedicated to the baby, and you know you might be really involved as well, or not, and feeling on the outer, or feeling like you've been replaced, or certainly the dynamics of the relationship change. And also,
especially if the mum is, you're not doing it the way it says in the book.
Exactly. Yeah. That happens a lot. You do the nappy this way, and it's like, oh, for God's sake. And I think the loss of intimacy as well, you know, that can be a real struggle for a lot of men, for a lot of women as well. But women, I guess, certainly in the first few months, you're so busy doing all this stuff, and your body's recovering. You know, typically you might not be as interested in having sex or doing, you know, that kind of stuff with your partner, whereas he's like, oh, you know, kind of thing. And there's a loss of intimacy, I think, on many levels, not just physically, but that's important to recognise that as well, that not just mums have postnatal depression, anxiety, but fathers can have that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And I think that pressure is huge.
Yeah, the pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pressure for guys. Yeah.
Definitely. Any other thoughts?
Yes and no.
Yeah, me too.
We could probably wrap it on forever. I'm mindful though that we're not men, and
this is true.
It would be great if we had a man here, any of those kind of things. If they were willing to talk about that. So we're just kind of observing from a distance, trying to chuck in what we've heard directly from
yes,
men.
because we've both spoken to men directly about this to inform ourselves before we came on and chatted about it.
I hope we're kind of on the right track there, but
so we're not men, and I am really mindful of that as well. But we are. I think part of this is around trying to raise awareness for women.
Yes.
Around how we can support our men in whatever shape our men may look. So regardless of what that relationship name may be. And I think part of it is just, I guess my key takeaway is that to be open and to have conversations with men and not to be afraid to actually start a conversation, but also to know that it's not our job to fix it.
Yeah.
So, and I think men tend to be the fixers, but women are, the talkers. Again, generalisation, but to encourage men to actually connect with other men as well.
Yeah, encourage their hobbies and activities.
Yeah.
To maintain a sense of self beyond work
and beyond the relationship.
Absolutely, because I think that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
The whole world is their relationship, or it's just
work and wife.
Absolutely.
Or work and family.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think there needs to be sort of that third in the Venn diagram
definitely.
of what they're getting outside of those two things as well, and encouraging men to actually reach out to people, to friends, and what I found from interaction with some men around mental health is they have all been really open to it and really open to having conversations. So, and I think perhaps there's sort of this idea that men don't want to talk about it, but maybe we're putting that on them by thinking that maybe we actually need to give them more credit.
Yeah, or perhaps they don't necessarily want to talk to us, which can be a bit heartbreaking, but that's their choice. There might be valid reasons for that, or if that's quite difficult in a relationship, we would suggest couples counselling, or if you are trying to support your partner and you find that it's very hard for you not to want to fix or get involved and it's causing more problems, come and sort that stuff out. That stuff is so fixable. I'm using the hair fixable. You can absolutely change. You can change that, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think a lot of couples get stuck in ways of relating to each other and patterns over many, many years. But it doesn't have to be that way. Again, it takes courage, I think, to come in and ask for help and get some therapy or support or whatever that looks like, and that, it's kind of the opposite to, if I keep it all together, then that's really tough. It's not, the courage and the bravery takes going to, in seeking help. Yeah. Takes a lot. Balls and boobs or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah. But I think sometimes as women, I think we hear it often here when we're talking to women and say, well, what about inviting your partner to come in for couples counselling or to be part of this? Oh no, my husband won't want to, or my partner won't want to. You think, have you asked him? Or do you just think that he won't want to? So maybe it's about, as women, being more open to the idea that actually men might be open to this idea.
Absolutely. More than you think. I reckon.
Let's give them
Yes.
Let's give them that.
Yeah. And them have a voice instead of us.
Yeah, instead of us talking for them.
Can talk forever.
We really could. There's so much more that we could cover, but
you probably think of us.
Well, we sort of popped on here to do about a 15-minute chat, and that was an hour ago.
Right.
So I think we've probably jabbered enough for now. So I'm just going to give you the phone numbers again, just in case. Lifeline 13 11 14, and that's a 24-hour phone number, or between 6 o'clock and midnight Australian Eastern Standard Time, 0477 13 11 14. If you need to call an ambulance, that's 000. Crisis care is 9223 1111. If you want to find out more about our services, then you can check out our website, whws.org.au. You can call us to find out about couples counselling or Circle of Security, since hopefully Mel and I have encouraged you and now convinced you that everybody in the world needs to do circular security. So our phone number here is 94902258. And
we're in Perth, WA.
We are in Perth, WA, yes. We are, definitely. But also we do have a number of courses that are available online, so self-paced learning. So that's another option as well. So you can check that out on the website, whws.org.au. And any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback, we would love to hear it, so that if this was useful, having us jabber away for an hour, because I really enjoyed talking to you about it.
But we want it to be useful.
We want it to be useful, we do. Plus, also, it's nice to get paid to have a chat.
Who doesn't love that? You just need the coffees coming in.
Goodness, why didn't we organise that?
Turmeric latte or something with like that would be good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But if there are any other kinds of things that you would like us to talk about,
yes,
please let us know, and we can jabber away for a bit about those other topics as well. Yay. Otherwise, it's Friday, it's nearly weekend, weather's beautiful. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye. I'm going to scoot off.
When I was going to run around, I'm just going to sit in bed.
Oh, yeah. And